This is Pharma Forum web editor Nicole Raleigh, and today I'll be speaking with Steve Sanghera, who is co-founder and CEO of Inventus Group, which is a pioneering technology solutions provider in life sciences and in clinical research. Pleasure to speak with you today, Steve.
It's an absolute pleasure to be here, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity to talk to you about Inventus and the industry.
Thank you. So, in the rapidly evolving landscape of clinical trials, Inventus has transformed and redefined the way in which it supports patients, sites, and sponsors. Indeed, it is the only company to create purpose-built mobile devices supported through global eSIM connectivity and industry-leading mobile device management. So, Steve, I was wondering to begin with today in the conversation, if you could tell us about the journey to co-founding Inventus with Jim Mitchell, who now serves as chairman of the company.
Yeah, that's correct. So we've been formed now 6 years, and the background of Jim and I is very much non-clinical trials, non-life sciences. It's very much technology, mobile technology, some finance from my side. And 6 years ago, we decided to set up a company because we both wanted a new challenge. The intention wasn't necessarily to be life sciences, but we wanted to do something together. And Jim used to be my boss. He's also my mentor and a very close friend. So we had a good recipe and bond before we even started. We wanted to do something together. And we created Inventus. And for a few months, we were just trying to figure out where we're going in terms of where mobile technology is today, where mobile technology is going, where is it being adopted, which industries are being adopted. We're looking at the finance industry, insurance, a lot of refurbished devices. That was a growing market. And we started to go down that journey, actually. We signed an agreement with a very large asset finance company, about $4 to $6 billion in assets. And that was the trajectory we thought we might be going into. And then out of the blue, just through knowledge in the industry, people found out that Jim and I had set up a company, and we just got a request for some devices. And it was a significant amount of devices. Now, if you put two and two together, you can figure out that was pre-COVID. Mm-hmm. So, okay, our background and our connections, our network would enable us to fulfill that requirement. So we went about to do that. But what we did do was ask the question, why is somebody wanting so many devices? That's not a network, that's not a retailer. And it was a one-off. It was a big, purely because of COVID, but we didn't realize at the time. And what we realized was that it was for clinical trials, and it was for a COVID vaccine trial. We filled that requirement, lots of toing and froing in between that. And we started to ask a lot of questions. This is pretty significant. What role does mobile technology play within drug manufacturing, drug development? They're so far apart. And we just got told about all of the challenges that sponsors, CROs, tech vendors, at this point as tech vendors, were finding in trying to source adequate, suitable devices and technology to put in the hands of a patient, to put in the hands of a clinician within a clinical trial. But also the sourcing, the logistics, the management of those devices. And then also the fact that the devices that were being deployed were very consumer orientated. And because the life cycle of a clinical trial and the life cycle of a patient within a trial is very different to you and I when we buy a device, whether it's an iPhone, whether it's a great Samsung phone, or whatever it is. The industry, in terms of how it is today, in terms of the mobile industry, just isn't geared up for that. So we said, why don't we just fix it? And that's what we did. And we were fortunate enough to partner with an organization that had the belief in the same vision as us. And collectively, we started that journey. As you start to delve into it further, it was not about just the device. The device was just the starting point of the challenges and the problems of the technology that was required. This is 6 years ago. Technology that was being required to be put in the hands of a patient within a clinical trial. Then we start to have issues around connectivity, software control, security, and so we just thought, well, if we can build devices, why can't we just do that? So we tried that. And the key thing about the journey that Jim and I have taken, and the great people and partners and the people within our organization that have achieved over the last 6 years, is we've learned and listened. Inventus has been built, and the technology today that's been built hasn't been built by Jim and me, hasn't been built by Inventus super intelligent technology R&D developers, which we have. It's been about us listening to what problems are faced back then in terms of patient burden, logistics, supply, poor technology, and fixing them. And that's been, in a nutshell, the simplicity of our journey. And it's been tough. It always is. It's never easy. But we have a very clear passion and desire to do the right thing. And what's transpired is, if you look at Inventus and you look at what Inventus stands for, it's 3 things. And everything that you see about Inventus, it says 3 things: patient, site, sponsor. It's not about the 3 things, it's also about the order of those 3. And what we've learnt over the last 6 years is that the most important element within any drug development is the patient. That's what we try to do. And I always refer to Doris. In our industry, in my company, everyone knows Doris. It's Doris from Texas, she's 85. And when we think about development and design, we think about Doris. So that's why the patient comes first. Then you start thinking about the challenges that the sites have. We have challenges about we've got great clinicians out there, but there's a huge shortage of them, right? So what we try to do is say, right, how can we, when we've got the clinicians and we've got the sites, how can we make their life easier? We know that they're being under pressure in terms of several different types of systems that they've got to operate with. There's no generic ecosystem for them to they'll be doing multiple clinical trials. So for us, we're always still also thinking about site burden and how can we make that clinician's job easier in delivering and controlling and managing that clinical trial, which will then also increase the empathy with the patient and enhance that experience very much. So that's why it's patient and site. And then this is the one that people don't like me saying, but it's true. Third and most important part of this is the sponsor, because it's the sponsors that are generously investing billions and billions of dollars into this industry to build better and develop better medication to save lives and better lives. And what we try to do is try to stretch every dollar as much as possible to get value throughout the supply chain. And that's our motto after 6 years of it, not even knowing anything about clinical trials in May 2020, not a clue. And we've learnt, and we're still learning today.
You've learnt and you've listened.
It's all about listening.
Indeed. So that's quite a journey, and we're going to unpack that during our conversation today. So some sort of key takeaways there, outside of the patients first, then sites and sponsors: listening and learning, addressing unmet needs, fixing problems that have need fixing for a very long time. You also mentioned a key word of, in the first instance, your bond with Jim and that partnership there. But I was wondering if you could go more into the importance of pharma partnerships in that Inventus journey you've just been describing for us.
It's a great question. Inventus would not be here at all if it wasn't for the partnerships that we've created. And I think what's really important is that the message goes out that you don't do things in isolation. This is not an Inventus journey, this is an industry journey. And what we've done is we've been fortunate enough to work with great partners at the right time, not going too fast, and working with them collaboratively to try and change small bits within a very large organisation.
Mm.
I call it the rivets and the planes. I've said this many times. When we look at Inventus, if you're building a plane, and that's the industry of drug development, so the engines, the instruments, the safety, some great organisations and brains do all that. We're not that. We just supply the rivets. That's it. But the rivets are the most important thing, to a point whereby if the rivets ain't right, the plane crashes. Mm. So we start to understand that. You start thinking about the partnerships that we've had. Without those partners and those key partners that we've been working with and listening to, Inventus wouldn't be the shape it is today. I think the biggest statistic that proves that for us is all of our clients and partners have come through referral.
Interesting.
Someone has recommended us to somebody to say, you might want to look at this organisation. They think a bit differently. They are built a bit differently. It might not be right for you because we're not right for everybody, and we accept that. We're just here to work with the right people that understand and we can fix their problems. But we are absolutely all about referral. But what we're not is a CRO. Mm. What we're not is a sponsor, and nor do we ever want to be. All we want to do is complement and enhance the great work that these multi-billion-dollar organizations have built and deliver over time. So we stay in our lane. So what we don't do is pretend to understand all the technical and scientific elements of drug development. That's not what we do. But we want to learn it to understand it a little bit. But what we will do then is adopt our knowledge of technology and apply it to that. If we spent our time trying to understand and learn that side, we wouldn't be doing our job, which is technology R&D, AI advancements, which I'm sure we're going to be talking about later, and constantly thinking about, we're talking about Inventus 1.0 today. 2.0 is already in flow.
Let's think sort of nationally, if you will, now. So the UK government, as viewers will know, has made a clear commitment to prioritising reducing the average setup time for commercial clinical trials. And the latest figures released in April this year revealed the figure had been reduced to 122 days, down from 169 in 2025. So I was wondering if you could go into what role technology has played in achieving this statistic to get trials up and running at the speed, as you've been alluded to, that patients actually deserve.
Great question. So I think first and foremost, any improvement in efficiencies of clinical trials is great. So seeing that we're reducing it down from 160 to 122 is fantastic. What we've got to really, though, is understand and dissect why that's happened over that period of time. And it's not just technology, it's not one thing at all. I think it's also about the environment and the industry and the changes that we've seen in the industry over the last 5 to 6 years. Technology has played a part of enhancing that, and I think it will have a greater impact going forward. But in terms of that period of time, you've got to understand that DCT, so decentralized trials, has become more and more prominent to the point where it's here to stay. And I think it's going to be the go-to when it comes to hybrid trials or decentralization of clinical trials. So that's really helped and advanced speed, efficiency, and patient engagement, but also e-consent and e-COA. So e-consent and e-COA has absolutely grown and driven in the last 5 to 6 years globally. But when we look at the UK and what the UK government are saying, all of these things, as well as the adoption of better technology, has all helped improve that. I would say that technology is yet to really drive the improvements in the UK's statistics, because these things take time. Okay, and what is great is over the last 2 years, absolutely what we're seeing is the NHS, the UK government, very much now focusing on this, focusing not only in terms of becoming a more central point of clinical trials, and we're working very closely with particular regions within the UK. We're passionate about that. In fact, we're creating our own health division to focus on this outside of clinical trials. People say, well, you're dedicated to clinical trials. We are. But there's a synergy between what clinical trials are doing and what healthcare and health systems want to do. That's a proof of that. So we're absolutely doing the right thing. So for me, technology is only starting to have an impact when we're talking about nationally here in the UK. I think the most positive and exciting part of all this is the shift change in our government in terms of really wanting to drive this more, investing in it more. There's a lot more funds out there that the government are backing, and not only in the UK but European as well. And clinical trials is starting to become more and more prevalent here in the UK, which is a good sign for our UK economy, and we want to be part of that. Only a small part, but we will be a part of that, and we already are. But let's be clear, there's more improvement to be had. Patient waiting lists need to be reduced, and 2.0 is about knowing the person before the patient without giving away too much, and adopting technology, not about the current infrastructure of a clinical trial where we're adopting technology to create and develop medication and drugs for existing conditions. Our vision is all about preventative health and how we're using technology to improve lifestyle, behaviors, community behaviors, family behaviors, to improve health, which will improve the requirement for better medication for preventative health, not necessary for existing conditions. And very much a lot of the focus of our R&D is based around that.
It's going towards that actual health care as opposed to sick care.
Yes.
Yep.
I like that.
So I want to come back to the technology itself now. And I want to turn to Inventus Mobile Device Management solutions. So first of all, I'd like you to tell us about Inventus Control.
Okay, so Inventus Control is our purpose-built for clinical trials mobile device management platform. So what that means for those that might not understand that is when you have an operating system on a mobile device, iOS, Android, etc., you can put in a software platform above that that controls the user interface in that device remotely. When we talk about clinical trials, and we're talking about Doris in Texas, who's 85, you want to make it as simplistic as possible for that user, the patient. More importantly, you've got to create a really controlled environment where you are managing the data that's being collected within that trial, because it's the data and the integrity of that data that is what the sponsors are really paying billions of dollars for. So what MDM does is it creates that environment. Like everything else, the industry has been using some significant and amazing mobile device management products, but not designed for clinical trials. So when we started to talk again to those that manage MDM, so the technical departments within CROs or tech vendors or in sponsors, it's okay, but it doesn't fix this problem, it doesn't fix that problem. And that's what we found. And so we went, okay, why don't we just find and build an MDM solution for clinical trials? And we got a list of 36 requirements over and above your standard mobile device management software that's out there today, great products. And of those 36, we managed to build and develop 22 of them. 14 of them was pretty either not cost effective or impossible to do. But that created Inventus Control. So Inventus Control is a purpose-built mobile device management software platform that's interoperable. I think what's important that I think people don't really understand about Inventus. Inventus is an ecosystem where we have products and solutions that try to solve everything in one place. And we have many entry points for that. However, what we don't do, because we're not selfish, is stop our technology from going into places and patients' hands and clinicians' hands if they're not using an Inventus device. That's not what we're about. What we're about is trying to put the right technology in the right hands to create the right results and the right benefits with the right values of a clinical trial. If that means they're not using Inventus devices, we're okay with that. What we want to do is better clinical trials. Yeah. So our mobile device management platform works on any device. So you don't have to have an Inventus device, but you can have that control. So that's something that we're really proud of, that we've built, first of its kind, as our devices are patient device and site devices, first of its kind. So you can see the simplicity of what we're doing. It's all very controlled, as in terms of Inventus control, but also everything is aligned. But ultimately, we just want the best technology in the hands of our patients and our clinicians globally around the world, and we feel that we can deliver that.
So that brings me to my next question, which is about Inventus Connect.
Yeah.
Tell us more about that.
Inventus is my baby.
Clearly.
Yes, and Jim's baby.
Yeah.
It's our baby. But one of the proudest things, I think, is Inventus Connect for us. Because as we built and resolved challenges around device, which we spoke about, we also found out there's significant challenges around connectivity. Right? And if you think about it, you can have the best technology in the world, but if you can't actually reach the people who are holding the technology, it's useless. And we're talking about 100 countries around the world that are deploying clinical trials on behalf of our clients, on behalf of the sponsors, where they're not all in America, they're not all here in London, in the UK, they're going to be in places where we have real severe issues around connectivity. And they have Wi-Fi challenges. And so what we were finding was people coming to us saying, we're really struggling to find consistent connectivity from single provider. We're having to go out and source connectivity solutions in Africa, then it's a different one for South America, we've got one for Europe and North America. It's just a nightmare to manage. Commercially, it's a nightmare to manage. And we then have to manage all these SIM cards, and we have to store these SIM cards and all these logistics, et cetera, et cetera. Coming from the industry, both Jim and I, we were like, well, okay, one, we can reduce the SIM problem relatively quickly because we have eSIM. Now, eSIM's a little bit more prevalent now, but back when we built it, it was still unheard of, or people are not really aware of it. But then more importantly, why don't we build a dedicated network, a platform for clinical trials? And sat in a room one day, I went, CDPO, Clinical Data Plan Operator. That's what we've become. It doesn't exist today, but neither did an MVNO, which is a mobile virtual network operator. So Tesco Mobile is a MVNO in the UK that operates above O2, but you're working with Tesco Mobile. Well, we don't operate with one network. So we became, Inventus Connect became the first of its kind, a clinical data plan operator. And what that means is we offer connectivity in 135 countries that's carrier agnostic. I'm going to use Doris in Texas again because it keeps it nice and simple. So Doris is in Texas, and in Texas, AT&T has really bad connectivity. But I'm not saying it does, by the way, I'm just using an example. Whereas Verizon, in that particular space, in that area where Doris lives, is strong. Mm. If she was assigned to a Verizon, an AT&T contract and connectivity, she's going to have poor connectivity all the time. What Inventus Connect does is it's intelligent enough through its eSIM and our technology to pick up the strongest signal and apply that signal to Doris wherever. So she'll be on Verizon at home. She then goes to Miami on holiday with her family, and she switches to T-Mobile. But she's always got the better connectivity. So you think about that in 135 countries. That's what we do. And you do it with one partner, Inventus Connect or Inventus Group, first of its kind. So all of a sudden now you can see the technology stack that Inventus has built. Starts from devices, then goes to control, in terms of that global software management dedicated to trials, and then connectivity. And all of our devices that we are building are all built with that platform. So it's built with the eSIM technology, it's built with the MDM technology. So our devices are pretty much geared up for all of that, but we also make it very interoperable.
So let's go from that 3 parts you've been describing and go forward into the future now.
Well, there's still more.
There's still more?
So if you look at Inventus, we go from 1 o'clock to 12 o'clock. We've got to probably 20 past. We've got sustainability. We've got finance solutions. We'll talk about that another time. But the tech stack, we've got logistics and support around the world. So we're global in terms of we have our own China infrastructure, which a lot of our partners now are leaning on us. So we actually have a China company. And we have really good partners that enable us to enable our clients and our partners to operate seamless in China, which is a challenge. And we're very proud of that as well. So there's many other things that we do, but we'll keep it to tech today.
Okay.
We've been busy.
We have been busy. So my final question for you today, and only today, given everything we've discussed, what would you both predict and hope for clinical trials in terms of patients, maybe also sites and sponsors, in the next 5 to 10 years?
That's a big question.
It is a big question, and time space.
So there's what I hope will happen. Predicting what will happen is very challenging, as you know. So I think what I hope will happen is the technology ecosystem that's been developed and deployed into clinical trials, not Inventus, just generically, should become seamless. In fact, should become invisible. Right? So I use the term invisible. People say, what do you mean by invisible? I mean, it's there, but in terms of the patient and the site, it's just seamless. So it just works. And what we're then doing is putting the right technology that's not fragmented. So you look at CROs, you look at tech vendors, you look at sponsors, they're all working in silo. Okay? Each one of them are amazing at what they do. And the solutions that they offer are fantastic. But to enable us to provide better solutions for the patient and reduce that patient burden, to enhance the efficiency of delivery of a clinical trial, which means we can bring drugs quicker to market, which means the sponsors are saving money, which means the sponsors can invest more money back into the system, it all has to be integrated. And that integrated ecosystem around technology is what needs to happen, and it's starting to happen for sure. What's going to fuel that is AI. Now, you go to Scope, you go to DIA, you've been going for 2 years, and it's all AI. But have people really figured out what role AI has to play and will play within the supply chain and the development of clinical trials? So you've got the early stage, you've got the design stage of a clinical trial, and then you've got the delivery of the clinical trial. I think in that design stage and the early stage is where we'll see early adoption of AI, because it can speed things up. And that's really, really exciting. And I'm already hearing and seeing and talking to people where that's the intention of where we're trying to really pinpoint AI today. And if you look at a lot of acquisitions that have been going on within the industry, it's all very much pointed at that design phase, early phase of clinical trials and drug development. And I think AI is really going to help enhance that. The bit where caution and control really needs to come in is when we start integrating it with the patient and start integrating data collection that's going to enable us to ensure accuracy and sign off by the FDA of clinical trials. And that's going to take a lot longer. But again, I believe AI has got a massive role to play in integrating AI as an engine behind technology that's already there. And I'm sort of giving you a hint in where 2.0 is going from our perspective. So in the next phase of our business is all about how we integrate that type of technology in our existing ecosystem to be able to start thinking about preventative health, patient recruitment, knowing the person before the patient. And I'm really excited about what we're doing as an organisation in terms of what our predictions of Inventus is going to be in 5 years, which should align to what we think the industry is doing. But we've also got to think about the context of clinical trials, that our role is a very small role to play, okay? Really small role, and we're very humble about that. The technology advancements, I think, are going to be way outside of what Inventus does. It's going to be at sponsor level in terms of that early phase design protocol, design phase of clinical trials, but also design phase of drug development. The one thing I really want to see, though, is, if I ask one request to this industry, is be more patient focused when you're designing your clinical trials. It still seems to be an afterthought. And when I talk to people that are very patient centric in this industry, that's the consistent feedback I get. So that's not what I'm saying. It's feedback that I'm consistently getting from really key individuals that are saying, if only we could be more patient centric when we're designing the clinical trials and it not being an afterthought. And that's, for me, is really encouraging, because that's what we stand for as Inventus. What 2.0 is doing is it's bringing latest technology, latest advancements, putting it into a controlled environment to make it more patient-centric, to make it more site-centric, and to enhance the value for our sponsors today, and start to think about preventative health, not necessarily about existing. But 1.0 isn't going anywhere. It's here to stay. 2.0 is just, as you'd expect any organisation, you always want to grow, learn, develop, and add more value and make a difference far greater than what we're doing today.
So bringing AI into that
And other
patient
things.
as person, in order to retain that central fact of all of this is for the good of human health.
Saving lives and bettering lives is what I say.
Saving lives and bettering lives.
That's what anybody that wakes up and is involved in clinical trials, drug development, preventative health, that's what they should be waking up thinking. What are we doing today that's going to better someone's life or save someone's life, either today or in the next century?
Indeed, from the local to the global and the today to the tomorrow. Thank you very much for your time today, Steve. It's been a pleasure.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you very much.